Great. Well, welcome everyone to the RCD Staff Workforce Development Interest Group. This is a shared space that we share with the student workforce, and we have opted at this point to alternate between the two, staff and student. And so this January, today, January 10th, is our staff emphasis. So we'll talk about staff topics today. I'm joined by Tim Middelkoop, my co-chair, and the other folks in the staff, the student workforce, Tom Cheatham and Anita Arendt, coincidentally both from University of Utah, and our third co-chair in that area, Betsy Hillary from Purdue, unfortunately got called away at a meeting at the last minute. But thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. So the staff workforce development interest group is for you and by you. So we want as much input and as much as you want to give to this group. We'll talk a little bit more about interest groups versus working groups as we move forward. But this particular interest group, we want to support current RCD professionals like yourselves and support those who are looking to become an RCD professional, and to be able to provide some resources to institutional RCD programs. And we have done a lot of soul searching, and among other things, the combined groups want to look at staff onboarding, training and development, and student program development. Oops. Sorry, here I'm having some trouble with my slide changes. So again, welcome everybody. We're going to do a quick little summary on the RCD Nexus Day that happened in the summer that was co-located with PEARC. Then Susan Ivey from NC State has been kind enough to say that she will talk a little bit about her program, the Research Facilitation Service at NC State. We'll look at the proposed working groups, and as time permits, as time permits, we'll look at upcoming calls. So RCD Nexus Day, it was an all-day workshop. Originally, we thought that we were going to put the staff and student activities together in the same room, and quickly we realized that we were we were both in pretty spirited groups, so we actually pulled down a portable door and actually segmented us into two separate spaces. But we did realize that we have similar problems and challenges that span both of the groups, and so we want to address them collectively through shared tools and methodologies, and develop common frameworks where possible. And we also want to look at learning paths that start as early as the undergraduate and go all the way up through senior RCD professionals. So we want to look at the entire career path of an RCD professional. And along the way, we want to identify gaps in training and development, both for the individual and, like I said, for the institution. So because there are differences, we worked and will work together, but we will also do that separately. And so this is kind of what you're seeing right here, is the idea that we're using kind of the same space and alternating between the two, staff and student. So in the workshop, we did exactly that. Like I said, we split out and we had two separate things. I must say I had a little bit of FOMO. I felt like I was missing out on the student part, but I think that this is we had an overwhelming response that said there are a lot of people who are interested in both. So we didn't want them to conflict when we had meeting times when possible. So this is just a look at some of the activities that happened at Nexus Day on the staff side. We had a lot of activity and a lot of sharing of ideas and information. We tried very hard not to boil the ocean, and we tried to cull it down to some specific topics, low-hanging fruit, if you will. And then kind of some aspirational ideas. The idea isn't for you to have to read all this, but I think it is interesting for you to see how we went about trying to develop some activity and figure out what we need to address. Here's another set, more of the topics that we talked about, and some of the ideas that happened. So we identified 4 areas that were discussed in those breakouts at different tables. We had people moving around: mentoring, tools and documentation, training, and measuring value, KPIs, ROIs. We recognize that there are new resources that are needed for staff and student workforce development, but we also recognize that existing resources are already out there and should be curated and documented. So in part, this is why we have asked Susan to present on her program, because we think this is a successful program that we should hear about. So key objectives. We want to work on developing those tools to help folks documenting successful programs like Susan's, and to determine leading practices. If we can figure out how to help guide people either individually in their career or as new RCD programs develop at institutions, we want to leverage all of your experience and address questions and challenges that you're facing. One of the things that we talked about, or 2 of the things we talked about, is, for example, just some basic materials, 5-minute video on what is research computing and data professional. That's one of the things that there was an overwhelming response that no matter what else happens, the participants felt like that was something that we needed to address. And there's a need for and the value for project management and training skills in support of RCD. I think I know I've had conversations with colleagues across the country who are saying that, yeah, they need to have somebody to manage some of those support things in as our RCD programs are growing. Oh, sorry. So as a result of this, we will move on. Susan, I want to pass it over to you.
Sure. Okay, thanks. So hi, everybody. If I don't know you, I'm Susan Ivey. As Claire said, I'm at NC State University. I'm the director of our new research facilitation service, which is a collaborative effort between our university libraries, our Office of Information Technology, and our Office of Research and Innovation. So today I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of our program. Thanks for inviting me, Claire and Tim. And if there are questions, I'm happy to take those. So next slide, please. All right, so like many of your institutions, I'm sure, we have a lot of different services and support areas under that umbrella of research computing and data. I've listed some on the screen. It is not everything that we have, but some of the central things are things like our HPC, the infrastructure and service and support around that. That started at NC State in 2003. Research data storage service offering, which began being offered to our university in 2016. OIT also offers support for cloud and virtual and secure computing, among other things, networking, all of that. Each of our colleges on campus has its own IT unit. Some of those units are very big, while others are quite small. So the capacity for research IT support varies greatly between each unit. Within our university libraries, we offer things like research data management, data visualization, data science, things like that, as well as publication support, open access. We partner very closely with our Data Science Academy, which is fairly new. I think it's about 1.5, maybe 2 years at this point at NC State. They have a consulting arm, so they do consultations and hands-on support for data science grant work. We have 6 shared core research facilities. I call out our GSL, our Genomic Sciences Laboratory. They're one of our huge champions and have been working with us since the start, and more, right? And so we're really fortunate to have this kind of support available to our researchers, but it's really challenging as well. You may face a lot of these same challenges. It's hard for our researchers to really know who to go to, where to go, what's available to them, who to talk to. Or even just if they're not quite sure, to have a resource that'll sit down, talk to them, understand what their needs are, suggest technologies, make those connections behind the scenes so they can just focus on their research. It's challenging for our service providers across campus as well. We've heard from several that they don't really have the opportunities or the ability to talk or communicate with one another. So they're trying to meet challenges and needs in different ways, and they just don't know what each other is doing, and they would really like to learn from one another. And so I think we'll move on to the next slide. So we created the RFS, the Research Facilitation Service, and I've put some of the main goals here, but with a hint, like it's really about people support. We want to provide a single point of contact for the RCD needs, and in doing so, increasing the discovery of and access to the services and support, both at NC State, but and beyond. We want to provide additional resource for analyzing requirements and proposing solutions. We really want to help in assisting to plan for cyber infrastructure needs for funded and unfunded projects, particularly for those funded projects. Get in at the proposal stage as early as possible, understand what researchers say they are doing, what they think they have access to, help them budget particularly. Connect those providers across campus as well. I just got off a call right before now. We were meeting with one of our college IT groups about ideas of what would be useful for them. And then lastly, act as a resource for strategic input. So, sitting between the researchers and the service providers, and being a service provider ourselves, we're hearing a lot about what people are trying to do, what people want to do, understanding and learning about gaps in services, or where a service could potentially, be better supported, and advocating for resources to fill those needs, keeping our eye on emerging technologies, and really talking to our decision makers and those on campus that have the money and they're to give to us to resource these areas. Next slide. So I threw this in here. I'm not going to go through all of this with you all. This is the service development timeline for the RFS. You can see that we've been at this for a couple of years now. And it's been the work of a lot of people from across campus, including our research office, IT, campus IT, libraries, Data Science Academy, core facilities, and research faculty as well. We've done a lot of different things to try to understand what different groups on campus are doing. And we've gotten fortunate to have some staff hired along the way to help support us. Next slide. So how did we get started? As I said, we did a lot of reporting. And so we decided once we were ready to launch as open to campus, we wanted to start with one single college, sort of as a pilot, in order to really figure out what it is that we're trying to do and how we're going to operate, because a service like this really relies on other services, and having those that trust built, those relationships, and all that goes into that. So we started with our College of Sciences. It's probably more like a 3-phase approach, but we did a lot of background where people didn't really know what we were up to, but we were working to get to understand their organization, their IT group, their research office, how they do funded projects, what their centers and institutes that are affiliated with that college are, meeting some of the researchers, listening to their needs, listening to their challenges. And then we kind of became operational in the second phase, where we did a lot of campus outreach to let the sciences research community know we were here and available. And then we sat back and started taking requests and working with their IT group and our central IT group on campus and trying to really connect the dots and see how we could help folks. Next slide, please. So what we're expecting next, we've begun working with our College of Natural Resources as a second rollout phase. We're launching with them in the next couple weeks, actually, to their research community. And we'll do the same thing that we did with sciences, tweaking things along the way. We're going to continue to work with our campus, engage, and we're still growing our team. So next slide. So here are our smiling faces. This is our team. We are still small, but we're fortunate to have the resources to have these staff members. So there are two of us. Our staffing is different than a lot of other models that I've seen. Half of our team is in the university libraries and the other half is in OIT. And we're still hiring one position that's going to be placed within the libraries with us. But we work basically, other than knowing that we report in different units on campus, we work for the service. So we're really like a department of our own. And I think that's all I had. Next slide. See if I added anything else in here. Yeah, that's it. And so if you have any questions or you want to reach out, that's our little website we're developing. We still have a ways to go on that, but you can find information. And if you're interested in any background about the working groups, the task force that got together, who was involved, what types of reports we wrote, things like that, it's all listed on that web page. And I guess maybe I'll just close out by saying, my interest in the staff and student development interest group really is like coming in as a director and sitting back and saying, okay, so we need to do this idea. We want to put together this research facilitation service. What are the roles that are necessary to do that? Like, what do other schools do? Do other schools have units like this? What position descriptions? And then once you get people in, like, how can we support them? How can we develop their skills? How can we grow their skills? And sort of what roles should I be envisioning as a director in the future that we'll need as and if we grow as a service unit as well. So I think I'll finish with that. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Susan, very much. Apologies with my bouncing. I don't know what's going on with my changing slides, but thank you. It's very interesting. It's very exciting to see a brand new program and one that is rooted in the library. It's so nice to see. So many of the programs start out in HPC, and so it's nice to see that. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Oh, yes, I have a couple. Congratulations, Susan. This is really exciting. I might have missed, who do you report to in terms of title, not name?
Sure. So I report, well, I'm one under the director of library. So I report to our AUL, Jill Sexton. And on the OIT side, they report to the director of research computing, who reports to our CIO. And then in terms of we kind of have executive sponsors. So our executive sponsors are director of libraries, CIO, and the VPR. And the AUL title, I always forget Jill's title. Let me Google it really fast. It's
While we're looking, so the two from the Office of IT, are they like a dotted line to you?
Well, yes.
With you as a partnership thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, they work with me as a partnership, but they do not in any way report to me at all.
Is this project funded from the libraries then, since that's your passive reporting?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out a funding model. So the positions within the libraries are funded via the libraries and the provosts, and the positions within OIT are funded from the chancellor. And it's state money, so they're permanent full-time positions. Now, in terms of growth, we're talking a lot about what that funding model might look like in the future. We don't charge for our services either right now. I don't know if it will always be that way. And we have not received any grant money to sustain us at this point either.
Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions for Susan? Well, if questions occur to you, please feel free to put it in the chat or add it to our running call doc, or reach out to Susan directly. Thank you again, Susan. This is great.
Yeah, thank you.
So back to the effort here with the interest group, we just wanted to do a little bit of a reminder slide on working groups versus interest groups and committees. Interest group, this group is for ideation, gathering interest, understanding the scope of the problem or the issue or the topic, the technology. Working groups have a very specific deliverable and a finite timeline. So our hope is that discussions out of our interest group will take us to working group activities where people can, for just, a month, a couple weeks, a couple months, hop in, take, address one of the deliverables that we are looking toward, and be able to contribute and then be done and be able to move on to something else. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with my mouse. Committees are smaller independent work that's usually attached to an interest or working group, but usually with no end date. So for example, we have a metrics group that Chris actually is a part of, and they help CARC to pull together metrics and information about CARC for different things. And we have, for example, a website group that is ongoing and deals with the update of the update and maintenance of our CARC website. So moving into working groups, we want to understand how you would like to proceed. This picture is a summary of the RCD Nexus workshop, where basically people upvoted their interest in some of these topics, and you can see the topics with the most votes: tools and documentation, the value KPIs, ROIs, and mentoring. The value KPI ROI, although it overwhelmingly got a huge response, we're thinking that it probably doesn't belong in the workforce development group. So we should consider that and talk a little bit about that. There is a working group that is a track in the people network, strategy and policy facing. And so we should consider whether or not this activity should be handed over to them, and that we can participate with them in handling that. But so we want to maybe focus on the idea of tools and documentation and mentoring. What do you all think? Does anybody have a gut reaction to this, or maybe somebody who was present at the workshop who can talk about kind of the interest?
Well, I have a interest in the middle one. We can sometimes find it easy to measure KPIs by how busy the clusters are and how many jobs and how many PIs. But I think the better value is to measure the value we provide to researchers. And that's so hard. I don't really can get my arms around how many papers they wrote, how many faculty new hires, how many PhDs they've, and how much our help contributed to those things that they are really interested in.
I think you bring up a really good point, and not to call you out, Jackie, is Jackie still here? She
I'm
really
here.
has done a lot of stuff on this. Sorry, Jackie.
That's
But
okay.
would you want to talk a little bit about your efforts there?
Sure, yeah. I've tried to kind of figure out, so I'm from Northwestern, and I've been trying to figure out ways to talk about where the gaps are for staff. And I've captured, I have a set of metrics that I use, and I do that through tickets. We have forms to request consultations, and being able to show which consultations we've been able to meet, and still have some that we weren't able to do just because we just didn't have the time to do that. So being able to provide those KPIs and metrics to show that there's still a need has been really helpful. The other thing is we've captured project requests and projects that we've had to turn down, especially on the data science side. But the other thing is there's been years where our number of requests have reduced, and we believe it's because people have come knocking and we've had to turn them down in the past, so they didn't come again. And so essentially all of the work that we did in reaching out and building our kind of user base, they kept coming, and then we had to turn them down. And so being able to show those kinds of things has been really helpful. There's a recording that's up on the EDUCAUSE site of a talk that I did in the EDUCAUSE RCD community group. I'll try and dig up that link and put it here.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sure.
So, talking about trying to figure out working group ideas and how to move forward and actually kind of develop some deliverables. These ideas came from the RCD Nexus Day. And my question to you all, are these still our top priorities? Mentoring, tools and documentation, and training. So the four top were the three that you saw in the past slide, and then training was the number 4. So I don't know, do we want to upvote? Does somebody want to unmute and talk a little bit about their interest in any of these? Onboarding was an original idea out of the RCD Nexus grant proposal. We often talk about resources. We all just ad hoc kind of start to, when we have a new staff member, we get out an email and start putting in links to, go to CARC, go to, this mailing list, go to this group. Is it of interest to you to have an actual, something more formal, a handbook? I know this, and on the student side, they actually have, there's a couple programs that have actual handbooks that they refer to. And I know that on the staff side, there are some RCD programs that have handbooks. Do we want to consider that? Are these things that you need?
Mary mentioned in the chat that she's all about the training. I'll add that at the recent, I believe it was a data call. There was some discussion about mentoring, and there was people interested about that. Or maybe it was the
yeah, I'll upvote for mentoring too. So that's one of the people I was there for voting.
Or was it the data call, or was it the Merchant Center's call?
No, I was talking about the RCD Nexus Day. So I was there advocating for staff mentoring, both student and staff mentoring. So that's still an interest to me. And I'm not clear about onboarding. So onboarding could be kind of distributed between training and mentoring, like how we onboard people, shared between, there's mentoring component of that, there's training component of that. Do you want to focus on, actually, as you said, a handbook, like basically items that you need to go through, start from hiring to basically the staff is now working at full efficiency in their role. Is that something that we are interested in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources in that area, and there's general interest. Jonathan Jersey has an excellent sort of from writing your job description to your 6-month review and how you put that together. He advocates for putting it, doing it in reverse. And I would also add to the onboarding, to mentoring and training, also resources as well. If you put those together in a plan, I think that's what, to me, what onboarding means.
And I think we also need to consider, like I +1 on all of that. But I think we also need to consider the whole idea of vetting and curating and organizing so that I keep using the analogy of the junk drawer, right? We keep collecting these things and we have really great resources all over the place, but we can't find them, I think, when we need them. Let's keep.
So one thing, the reason why we put up the comment about, this is by you and for you is these, that's not something that, Claire and I are going to go run away in a corner and do this work. It's really, how do we gather people that have like interests and like desires to do these types of things? And in my experience with CARC, the most successful working groups are ones that there are a couple of people that are going to do it anyways. And so they get their friends to help them. And the end result is that it's something that a lot more people can use in a better product. So, if you're in the midst of developing a mentoring program, you can get your friends to help out and make a greater impact. Just one, it's just one way of thinking about a working group.
Good point, Tim.
And by the way, I'd like to give Alper a shout out for his work at the PEARC22 student mentoring program. I know that must have been a lot of work, and I participated in that, and that was a great experience for me, and I'm sure it was for the students as well.
So I want to kind of blur the lines between the working groups and now the future calls, because we have to have the discussion and the ideation in order to create the working groups. But what I'd like to do is if you all could pull up menti.com and put in this code, then we can look at this question. What keeps you up at night with regard to your staff workforce? I personally have 2 openings now, and I have a really small team, and so I'm a little bit nervous. But if you all can hop onto menti.com and put in the code 24494783. Attention, yes. And training. So as we start to look at some of these retention and training, hiring more staff, it seems like when we start to think about these things, they really do align with those priorities that the workshop folks came to. Good things. You should be able to put in a couple responses, because I'm sure that there's not just one answer for folks. Burnout's an interesting one. Whoever put that in, if you're comfortable and want to unmute and say something about that. Is that something that you're seeing throughout your staff, or is that a individual that you're seeing it individually?
Kind of a bit of both. So I'm not in any leadership role within my organizational unit, but it's kind of a similar to a lot of others, we don't have a lot of staff. And so if one person, even if they get sick or if they just have a sudden burst of workload that it just wears them out, that can affect the rest of the unit. And so that's kind of just a cascading effect that worries me. And I personally try to prevent that both with myself and others in our unit.
Yeah, that's got to be worrisome whether you are a manager or not. Because it's going to affect you, particularly in a small group. So except for, well, and maybe even the competitive salaries, but I was going to say, except for the competitive salaries, all of these, I think, have some relationship to the activities that we potentially could propose and engage in with this interest group and with the working groups. So I'm wondering, let's move to the next screen here.
Claire, one of the things that I was thinking, I couldn't fit it in the number of characters that it was allowing me to, but the lack of integration of professional development opportunities in our research, computing, and data circles. So thinking about like other professional organizations like ACS, EDUCAUSE, they provide strong professional development opportunities and programs, but I don't think that the RCD community, I think we could do a better job of taking advantage of those, especially in developing leaders, because I think there is a real lack of development of leaders, managers in the workforce, because one, it's so small, but the problem is that there are more places that are building out these kinds of centers and groups. And so I think that we need to figure out a way to go to folks to bring them in, because I don't think that they know about us. And I think we have to figure out a way to reach out, as I guess is my point, and who to reach out to, and then also work on developing those folks and be pretty serious about it, which is, I mean, this is exactly why we're all here. But that's
Right.
Yeah.
Jackie, do you think that fits within the broader sense of an onboarding plan? I know it's a little bit larger than that, but it kind of seems to me that that's what the end result would be, the feeding of places to go for the onboarding plan.
Yeah. I was just saying, I guess I was kind of echoing or affirming the importance of that. I just couldn't fit it in the Menti thing for this.
And I guess what you're talking about is more than an onboarding plan. It's like a mid-boarding plan, right? Where people mid-career need to be onboarded into their next step of their career.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. How do you invite people to the leadership table, of the RCD networks, and invite them into committees and really develop these folks so that we have future leaders too.
And there is an effort in this area with Henry Neiman is focused on that area, the sort of the national RCD CI leadership program. I forget the exact name of it right now.
Yeah, but I want something that's not invite, right? I want something that's accessible to anybody who can self-nominate themselves. And really, I mean, I think a lot of the participants are well known. And so how do we provide something that, I think we just need to be considering a lot more people into leadership roles that we haven't before, because I think there just aren't enough. And if you look at CASC, the diversity is there, and so I think we need age diversity, we need gender diversity, we need diversity from so many different dimensions and different fields as well. So I think that middle layer, really, I think we need to work on.
Like the local and the regional leadership in all aspects, right? So
Mhm.
what you're also talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Jackie, one of the things that resonates with what you said was that kind of going to the well of the people we know. I think we're not doing a good enough job reaching out to kind of those people who are along their career, and they're kind of quietly doing it locally, and seeing how we can draw them out without providing them with the daunting, okay, that means you have to chair 5 committees and you have to do all this
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly. How do we lift
Right.
people up, and how do we invite them in and go to them to invite them in, right? Because I think the amount of positions that are open, everybody knows how hard it is to hire somebody who isn't already a part of your team right now. And we really need to be building our own workforce, but we need to invite people in. And how do we bring people in and go to where they are versus kind of the build it and they will come?
Right.
I think we just need to be more aggressive and thoughtful.
I think that would be a very interesting topic for a future call.
Are you familiar with Jonathan Dorsey's research computing teams?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those who are not, that's an excellent resource for people that
Very
are
great. Yeah,
in
I agree.
leadership and management positions.
So it's those kinds of resources that we need to figure out how to get them into the RCD Nexus portal, so that people can actually find them and they don't have to, happen to be in a meeting like this where they hear about it, right? So that's the other thing, is how do we give people the resources without providing a junk drawer of, here, go through this Google Doc, these Google folders, this shared area, and comb through. So, I'd be interested in if anybody has any good ideas on curating and organizing this kind of information. But this Menti question, what are your most urgent needs having to do with staff workforce other than budget and compensation? Because that's one that's hard to, we can't really address. We don't have a lot of control over that. We can attempt to look at it when we do KPIs and the things that Jackie mentioned, the things that Chris mentioned. But I think that if we take those off the table, we should kind of think about this. I'd be interested to know in the other that somebody put in, if somebody wants to unmute, if they're willing. Okay. Okay, so this said, are people now getting comfortable with the idea of maybe dipping their toe into a working group to start to look at some of this and picking something out? I'm going to stop sharing now. A resounding no response here. Oh, Jackie, yes. Okay, so I am wondering, is the best mode that we utilize the mailing list for the staff interest group, and we start to just propose? Like Jackie, when you say yes, that you're interested, which one are
Yeah.
you interested in dipping your toe in?
So I think, so there, EDUCAUSE already has like a huge resource around hiring. And I think that we can utilize that. I think that there's been other work that we could just curate around that. I think maybe expanding that into recruitment would be really important so that we can kind of bring in I think the diversity stuff is going to be pulled into everything. I would hope that it would be. So that just, I think we can just pull that into everything. And then what were the number 2 and 3? I think training and professional development, I'd definitely be interested in working on staff development, especially that middle layer. And then what was the other one? Maybe onboarding, I want to say. No, onboarding.
Yeah, onboarding was one.
Right. Sorry.
Hiring, retention, training, staff development, diversity issues. I'll put this back up for you all to look at. We're coming up close to the hour. Tim is trying to keep me honest here. But you can see hiring. So it looks like there are folks who are interested in a couple of these.
Claire, I will definitely be interested in working on the, whoever wants to start the conversation when it comes to training and the development of the staff too.
Okay, great, thank you.
I believe that in my opinion that there are some aspects here, that they are intertwined, right? Because if you begin to improve one, then you will be more likely to gain retention of your staff if you are, constantly helping to develop and to grow.
Yes.
Right.
Completely agree, Gladys.
Absolutely. I think that, as you say, they're intertwined, but I think maybe these are starting points to kind of pick something to start with. And then it's kind of like the thread on the sweater, right? You pull it and it starts to unravel, and then it kind of is a wholesale attack on everything, right? Go ahead. Sorry, someone was going to say something.
No, I was just going to ask you, so for the next step, how do you want to go about this? Through the mailing list and let people to choose and come together and create, on a schedule to this, or something that you want to navigate? What would be the plan?
Yes, so I think maybe you have exactly where I was headed next, is that I think that we'll post to the mailing list and maybe put these items as potential working groups, and maybe we'll push it out to a Google Doc so people can put their name under the areas that they're interested in working on.
And we'd like to really encourage the use of the mailing list, because for 2 reasons. One, not everyone can be here at this time. And the other one is we're meeting every other month, so things will move slowly. And so working more asynchronous, I think, may get some more results, and we can have some discussion and potentially just take some of the material that people email and start to build a Google Doc around that as well. So I think we'd really encourage you to do that.
How does that sound for everybody?
It sounds pretty good to me.
Great, okay. If there are other issues, we'll also give you an opportunity to add to that list in case something occurs to you, something more specific, some more low-hanging fruit, something more urgent that we want to work on. And also, we'll also ask if someone wants to co-chair. I know that's a bigger ask. It's not necessary, but we'll definitely want to again promote leadership. This is a good opportunity for somebody who's ready to do something. We'll do that. Great. Anybody have any last questions or any last comments?
So I have one question. So in the previous slides, we discussed like those interest groups who were interested, like training, mentoring, and there was one more, I think. So we removed the KPIs. So some of those, for instance, in the previous slide that you have staff development. For instance, mentoring is an option or a way through staff development. So how do we combine these interest groups or working groups in a sense? They're again intertwined or connected in my mind.
So Albert, my thinking is that the working group members can have the discussion to make a determination on what they want to tackle and what the deliverable is. Because again, we don't want to discourage people from joining a working group because the working group is trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely change up the charter for the working group. You know, you could very well determine 1 or 2 deliverables, accomplish that, and want to continue because of the connectivity to some other issue, like, you know, mentoring and staff development, right? And then you could just change and have the next deliverable. And then the people who are on the group can either stay or they can say, I'm done. I've done my task. And then we can actually put a call out to add more members to the working group.
And I think the working group or the interest group list is an appropriate place to start gathering folks that would be interested and workshopping some of those ideas. And then as it gets critical mass, move that into its own working group or separate area. But, you know, when you're talking to that list, you know, it's people that are interested in general workforce development. You're not, you know, spamming and you know, just a general list where the people that are interested versus the people are not is not as high as, you know, kind of the on topic area. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you know, just sort of form your ideas up and put it out there and we can work on it together. Because I know there's definitely people interested in that area and I think you get some good responses and move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So
And that's really what the interest group is get people together with shared interest and then find people that are interested in working on things together, which get pushed to a more finite timeline as in the working group, as Claire mentioned.
So it's just a reminder in case you are not already on the interest group mailing list. Here's some instructions on how to get to that. Just as a reminder, the combined group meets monthly, the second Tuesday of the month at this time. And then we alternate with the student workforce activity. Okay, if there's nothing else, one last opportunity for somebody to speak up. Thanks all. I think we can stop the recording. Thank you, everyone.